the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hi, I'm Isaac Mashman, and you're listening to Business Story of the Week.
Fantastic. And that is the man of the hour, the man of the episode today, our guest, Isaac Mashman. And of course, I am your host. My name is Joshua. As always, in every episode, we ask you questions. And our question for today is personal branding more like a sculpture or a seed growing and evolving over time? Well, Isaac is the perfect man to answer that question. But more than that, he has a profound career and a lot of stuff that we would love to unravel and talk about today. Isaac Mashman is an American businessman, coffee addict, author, podcast host, and CEO of Mashman Consultant Group. Raised in a single parent household, Isaac learned the value of vision and hard work early on. He has founded multiple companies, including Mashman Ventures and MCG, which specialize in personal branding and reputation management. He is also the author of Personal Branding, a manifesto on fame and influence, an Amazon bestseller. And well, there's so much there to actually. Can't even begin to mention all of that. We're not going to get done if I mention everything that Isaac has done. Isaac, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you. How are you doing?
Joshua, man, thank you again for the invitation. Excited to have the conversation. And let's dive into it.
Well, that's the way we dive into this, Isaac, is always the origin stories, right? Isaac, what was the young Isaac Mashman like? It's always very interesting. You in your bio, in your stories, you were raised in a single parent household. What was that like? But more importantly, what would the young Isaac Mashman say to the Isaac of today?
Man, that's a heck of a question to start off the interview with. I love that, jumping right into it. Frankly, I think younger Isaac would say you could do better. That is the God honest truth. The reason I say that is I'm not one of these DRF entrepreneurs. A lot of times you hear Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone or any entrepreneur guru mentor of yours, they'll start off by saying I was a horrible student. I'm the opposite. I was a straight A student. I had one C in my life, and it was the end of the world. I had to go get tutoring after school in order to bring that C in algebra up to at least a B. So I had that expectation of B is not good enough. Like I had to get an A, and the higher I could get to 100, the better. And that was instilled in me young because, well, I knew that my mom wouldn't be able to pay for college. So I was on track to get that full ride scholarship, and I was one SAT test away. Honestly, I could have gotten it the first time. I was 10 points away from hitting the requirement for a full ride scholarship through the Florida Bright Futures Scholarship Program. I got accepted to Florida State, University of Central Florida. And my senior year of high school, I went to my guidance counselor one day after class and I said, I'm not going to college. Imagine the shock on his face, right? And so asking a younger version of myself, I feel like he would maybe appreciate some of my accomplishments, but then also wonder, all right, well, why don't you already have the dream house? That would be the question that he'd ask. And I think that young arrogance is something that helped me early on that I believe that we should harness throughout our careers and don't let that completely slip away.
Interesting, because first of all, Isaac, you mentioned like you've lived excellence because there's pressure, clearly, because you said like you didn't want to perhaps your mother couldn't pay for college. You made sure that she didn't have to worry about that, but then you had to, the brightest student, right, of the professor, you had to approach, no, I'm not going to college, going straight into business, going straight into entrepreneurship. Isaac, first of all, I feel like you've lived in such high pressure situations, knowing that you are, your mother was a single parent. What was that like? What was that like, constantly living through high expectations? But it feels like it's more like an expectation that you set for yourself.
It was a mixture of expectations set by her, and then later when she remarried my stepdad, I believe put a little bit of that pressure because he had that narcissistic personality to where he had to be right. And so no matter what I did, I was never good enough. And so I don't think I've ever talked about this as blatantly open about the specific aspect of my childhood, but those expectations that were set where you need to go ahead and get good grades because you're not good enough as is, so let's go ahead and get you as high as possible. And it sounds so traumatic. And I suppose part of that trauma is good because entrepreneurs, the best entrepreneurs, are those that are built and bred off of some kind of trauma, because then you find a solution to that trauma. And so in my case, growing up, seeing my grandparents' house, the roof was caving in. We had to put tarps on the roof. There was black mold in my back bedroom. Like, there were some tough situations there. I had the weight on my shoulders, just like my mom went and she jumped into her own career and had to help provide for my grandparents. I felt like I needed to do the same thing at 12, 13, 14 years old in some way, to where I was searching up for different programs that my grandparents might be able to qualify for to get the roof taken care of. And so it's like, there was a mixture of expectations set by external forces, and then this expectation that I set for myself because I feel like I needed to live up to something and I suppose be the man of the household, because I didn't have that fatherly figure in those early years.
I love that. I love it. And it's very important, like you said, these experiences are what shape us, especially when it comes to entrepreneurship, when it comes to business, when it comes to career. Like you said, you find solution, and then now you're helping people find that solution. But it takes that different kind of mindset as well to get into entrepreneurship as well. But now, talk to us about that transition, though. You said I'm not going to go to school, I'm not going to go to college, I'm not going to go to university. Why? What was the reaction of your professor? What exactly did you tell him what you were going to do? What was that transition like?
Well, it was really casual. And my senior year of high school, my grades weren't slipping, and I had a really easy senior year. Like, I had like 4 classes, and then I had three free periods, which I spent my time editing my first podcast, and I was on the computer watching and basically going on a marathon of Gary Vaynerchuk videos. And I don't have anything negative to say about Gary. I feel like you start watching Gary Vaynerchuk, and then you evolve and you go deeper into business. And he's like the introductory course for this entire world of high level business. And then you get into the corporate world, and it's entirely different too. So I basically went up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm not going to, I'm not doing it." And I don't remember his name. I feel horrible, but he was a Turkish guy. The school that I went to was a charter school, and it was founded by Turkish people. I'm connected with the founder, excellent guy, in Jacksonville, Florida. And I just was like, "Hey, I'm not doing college. I'm going straight into business." And it wasn't even his reaction, in so much as, I suppose, the silent disappointment for my mom, because I know that sounds horrible, and I'm opening up today. I don't know why, but I am. But we were already going through so many issues where I decided to live with my grandparents because I just could not stand my stepfather. I hated him. To this day, I do not like him. And I was living with my grandparents, and so my mom already had in her mind, oh my God, like, he's not going to have the same standards because he's living with my parents, because the grandparents of every family are usually more lenient, right, a lot of times. And so I didn't have a great relationship with her during my senior year, and so it was this subconscious thing in my mind where I'm like, I know she's probably disappointed in me, so I have to prove her wrong, and I have to prove myself right. And it's been hell over high water for the past 5-6 years as I've gotten and built up my successes. And over the past 6 years, every single thing that I've accomplished, my mom's come to a degree of acceptance and said, "Oh, Isaac published his book. Oh, he did this. Oh, he's closing and working with these kind of people. Oh, he's been able to travel a little bit. Oh," and so it's like, through those successes, because you have to realize nobody owes you anything, and your parents are basing their future outlook on you and their expectations on what they believe you could be, but not necessarily what you yourself want to do. And I had to kind of discover that individual self, especially coming from like that one half of narcissism, which has been really a hell of a journey.
And it's, of course, like self-validation and self-acceptance and all those things, is because you have to find that in yourself, and you're not going to find it outside sometimes, especially, people who are close to you won't give you that validation. You have to find that in yourself. Isaac, do you feel like it's enough now? Because you talk about, like, your mother has slowly come to the acceptance that you've built everything. Now you release your book. You've built your company. You're going up there. Do you feel like for her, wow, she made the right decision? Do you feel like it's enough now, these accomplishments? And to you yourself, do you feel like you are good enough now?
Man, therapy session with Joshua Larry. I love this. The answer is no. And the reason I say it's no is, I spent an entire summer, I feel like, in California going through that discovery phase like all young guys do, right? You go out, you go to California, sleep on the floor, hang out with a bunch of dudes you shouldn't hang out with. And over this entire summer period, I was contemplating to myself, and I remember obsessing and like literally OCD obsessing over what is my purpose, what is my why? Because what are the things that entrepreneurs online talk about? Self-improvement, the biggest things. What is your purpose? And what is your why? Why are you on this planet? And that creates obsession because now we have to spend all this time trying to figure that out. And in my mind, I felt like I could not progress until I had those things ironed out. And so I remember sitting in a truck on the way to the store with one of the roommates at the time, and I finally started to creep on the edge of what that purpose was, what that why was. And the best answer that I could come with for myself, because I tried the let me save the world aspect, but I don't have that savior complex personality. But I realized that it was my purpose in life is to live up to my potential in all areas. And if you were to ask me why, I would respond with why not? Why not do it? Right? And so I'm finding a good balance between going for, I suppose, to use a theological term, worldly possessions, right? Money, fame, influence, success. Those are all vanity ego metrics. And also finding a good balance of philanthropy and being a good father to future kids, to being a good husband, to being a good person, to being a good businessman, to being a good community leader. And there's a striking balance that you have to kind of walk, and some days you'll lean into the left and some days you'll lean into the right. And so I would say I don't think it's good enough because I know that I'm not even close to where I'll be 10 years from now. But I do understand, you talked about acceptance, that I do have some progression to go. And I'm accepting that, hey, at the end of the day, I'm still young. And I am figuring all that out. Mhm. The entire journey is, and I've mentioned this on interviews in the past, ultimately the pursuit of clarity. And by saying the pursuit of clarity, it is I'm looking for my vehicle that I could take to a very high level. Because every business owner and every entrepreneur, especially early on, these are the things that nobody tells you is like you're going to jump from business to business to business. But the people who have the most success eventually stick with one business for a long enough period of time. Andrew Carnegie, one of the most successful people of our entire, well, I suppose, historical existence here in America, he talked in his book, The Empire Business, which is actually a collection of essays and letters that he wrote throughout the years, but it was published in the early 1900s. He says that people get it wrong. They put all their eggs in a bunch of different baskets. And he said, mind you, one of the most successful men of all time, that you should put all of your eggs in one basket and watch that basket, right? And so in my mind, I don't need to build 25 different companies to get revenue. I need to build one company and have that vehicle allow me to invest in other things if I want to allow me to get, live a good life. Like I want to create a generational business, a generational corporation that I could pass down. And that is ultimately Mashman Consulting Group. But that journey was masqueraded by going into network marketing in 3 different companies 4 different times, to doing podcast management, to doing a apparel line, to doing, consulting, general consulting, right? To figuring out maybe I want to do a record label and manage musical talent. That was another time in California. Go to California and manage musical talent, right? It's cliche now that I look back on it. And then I eventually stumbled upon the field of public relations, and I knew that personal branding was a huge opportunity because everybody worked with businesses, but what about the business owner, right? And so with that in mind, I launched my public relations firm, which up until recently I've been building, which was Mashman Ventures. But even then I felt, and this was a venture for 4 years, that it created more questions than it did answers. And by that I say, okay, we're a public relations firm that specializes in personal branding, and the way that we provide services is consulting. Okay, that's a mouthful, right? So what if I go ahead and drop the public relations label and launch a brand new business that's just strictly consulting? And I ran away from that because I felt like, again, setting up these expectations that these internet entrepreneurs have is you have to have some degree of success before you launch a program. You have to have some legitimacy before you go and do coaching or consulting. And so I needed to make sure that I had some proven results and a track record before I launched a firm consulting group. And that is ultimately what I'm doing today. And I had those verifiable successes to where now you could run a Google search. And, I made a post about this today of like, you don't want to be questioned. Nobody likes being questioned. So if you're able to say, hey, Google me, and they're able to see testimonials and case studies and examples in your own successes, it's an easier time for you to close. And this is why I believe that everybody should be consciously building out your personal brand, because you have a personal brand regardless. But the people who have the most success leverage it and grow it and get results.
That's it, exactly. Because when your brand is out there, people trust you more. People look at you. They literally what you said. They don't question you because they see you out there. Oh wow, he's legitimate. He talks about these things. He's an expert. He's trusting.
Yes.
He's trustworthy, so to speak. And there's no room for doubt in there. And I think that is why personal branding. It's really interesting how you kind of zeroed into that aspect. I said you gone through different ventures, you've gone through different stages in your life, in your career, you've tried everything. What are the challenges of starting a business? The challenges of starting a business or starting a career compared to the challenges of maintaining and growing a personal brand now that is your focus?
I believe they're identical. And the reason I say that is I believe in order to have a successful personal brand, you have to treat it as if it were a business. Because a business that does not make money is a nonprofit. And I'm all for nonprofit work. But at the same point, if you need to survive, you need a business that makes money. Your personal brand is the same thing because you spend time creating content, you're investing in software, you're hiring third-party independent contractors, you are going and creating custom merchandise, you're spending a lot of time online connecting with people, building out your personal brand. And you see, your personal brand exists whether you want to acknowledge it or not. It is created the moment you were born. Your mom named you, determined where you were born, the religion, the political affiliation, all of that. But now as an adult and a business leader, or as an entertainer or somebody who's in that field, you have the ability to consciously leverage your personal brand. And so I would say it's very similar because you have to have structure. So your overall personal brand presence, your digital footprint, is very much like the structure of a company because it's a network of social media profiles and articles and interviews and podcasts and successes and awards and accolades and books and speaking. I could go on. And all of that is similar to the structure of a company, to where you have systems and processes, you have automations, you have people, you have employees, you have contractors. And eventually you need to get to the point where your personal brand has its own team of people and is successful enough to where it's employing other individuals, just like a business is providing a service or a product and employing individuals.
That's very important, right? We've established that branding is very, very crucial. You treat it as like a business first. When you treat it as a business, then you start bringing in more business. Actually, what I always say is like it helps you sell without actually selling anymore. Right, because your branding is established. But here's the thing: for all our audience listeners out there, some of them are startups, some of them just began their career. Some of them are business owners who just started off. Isaac, when it comes to choosing between that, because of course I want to build my business, I want to make money out of it. Bring in profits from my business, bring in all that revenue, and I have to pour in all my resources into this business, right? But I also need to build my brand, and I also need to treat it like a business. Where do I pour in my resources? I need to build a business first, or I need to put it into my brand. How would we balance that?
You have to understand that building your personal brand is not something that is supplemental, but rather complementary. So it's something that doesn't take much more time and can actually be a tremendous asset. And so let's say you're building a podcast booking agency, right? We're helping high-level public figure, we're helping public figures land more podcast interviews. Let's go with that marketing message and say that it's third party. This is your business. We help public figures land high-quality interviews. right? So now you can transition that into your personal profiles and you can have a personal hook. So for example, mine is addicted to coffee and standards. But let's say you have one that is like fitness junkie and advocate for mental health. Let's just say that's a personal hook, right? It might be cliche, I wouldn't recommend it, but you could dive deep and say, closet nerd, like things of that nature are served as good hooks, just like a sales script has to have a hook to bring you in. So now you say closet nerd, and then the second part is I help. Notice I didn't say we, I said I help high-level public figures land podcast interviews or land high-quality podcast interviews. So you're leveraging your personal brand to drive awareness to a business. Now, if you were to look at what I've done for my own company, I do not recommend you follow in my footsteps because my businesses are named after myself. They're named Mashman Consulting Group. And it's not vanity or ego. It's that I want to create a generational brand and I want to set the foundation. And I'm leveraging in large part my personal brand to drive this revenue until it takes on a life of its own. But let's say, for example, you're building Podcast Cola. You're able to say that, hey, I, Joshua Lowry, am the founder of Podcast Cola, and you yourself can get on interviews and talk about your story. And people will naturally want to check out your business. And now that personal relationship is now a business relationship. And so now there's transactions involved.
It's almost like it's truly part of the business. We treat it as like part of the business as you're growing it, even as you're starting it. Like you said, it takes minimal effort, but gives great returns because that personal branding is it's like your shop sign, so to speak. Right? If you don't put a proper shop sign out there, people are not going to learn that you're a business. If you don't turn on that shop sign light, people are going to know that you're open for business. I love that because, that shop sign did it. I love that what you said, that it takes minimal effort because that shop sign probably takes minimal effort too, but at the same time, it gives you the most return because people know that you are out there, you are putting yourself out there. Now, Isaac, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is a little more on the personal side as we begin wrapping this up and circling this around. How do you now navigate your balance between personal ambition and public perception, so to speak? Because now you are in the world of branding, right? That's literally quite your focus. How would you then balance that? Because I have my own personal ambitions. I want to be an athlete. I want to be a Dungeons and Dragons nerd, right? Like the closet nerd that you mentioned. But my brand is really like, a fitness coach or like a business coach. I can't really be talking about all that nerdy stuff. How do you start balancing that? And do you think those kind of stories have room in corporate branding?
Yeah, well, let's think about the phrase personal brand. On the left, you have personal. On the right, you have brand. Draw a line down the middle. On personal, you have things that are pertaining to your personal characteristics, your personality, your interests, your hobbies, your passions, your fears, your life stories, your life story. And then on the right, you have brand, which is your profession, what you do to make money, your authority, your credibility, something that progresses your business forward, generates revenue. And I can think of many YouTubers that I don't know their first name. I know their brand channel, but I don't know their name, which means that if I was to get another recommendation in my feed tomorrow with somebody else that looks just as appealing, I'm going to click on that video because I don't have an emotional connection or a tie to that brand, or because I do not know the person. I don't know the first name. I don't know the last name, right? Now, imagine, though, your mentor, you know their first and last name, or your favorite celebrity, you know where they were born, you know what movies they starred in, you know their background, like Sylvester Stallone. I know that in order to write Rocky, the first film, before it was picked up, he had to sell his dog to eat. I know that story about him because he's a celebrity that I like and acknowledge. I know his personal story as well. So the easiest way to go about this is what I call the Skyline strategy. Behind me is a building in Little Rock, Arkansas. It's the Regions building, right? There's Stevens Inc. that way. There's a couple other buildings to my left. This is the skyline of Little Rock. And similarly, your personal brand has its own skyline. You are managing perceptions, what people are seeing from a distance until they get close to you and then they get to know you. And so what you need to do is for every 2 business posts, again, the brand side, you do 1 personal post. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, which balances out the business that you are building, the perception you are creating, as well as bringing you down to earth a little bit to where now people are able to connect with you on an emotional level, and therefore What is emotion? Emotional connection. It is rapport. So now they have rapport with you. So it's called the Skyline strategy. It's a 2-to-1 ratio. This is the most effective thing I've said. And this is the one strategy that I would say somebody needs to take away and walk with this, because it will completely transform your personal brand online to where, yeah, you're not just the podcast guy, but you're also that closet nerd. You like certain kinds of food, you like Dungeons and Dragons, whatever. Those are things that connect you with people.
Connection is important. Being able to relate to people is important. It's one thing to be high executive, high level business guy, made all these millions, but people can't really connect all the time to that. I mean, this guy made $120 million in a year, and people can't connect to that. But if you bring yourself down to earth, like you said, hey, I also play. I play chess games. I play board games with my kids. I love how you say put a line between personal and brand, and I think that really sets kind of tone and a direction for anybody who is navigating their business right now and how they start their personal brand. Isaac, it's been very insightful. It's been very cool, and I love that you put together your story and your journey throughout here, and now you clearly found a niche and focus and expertise in personal branding. Isaac, how has it been so far? How has it been dealing with, high level executives when it comes to, their personal branding? What are some common challenges? But most importantly, what are some common successes that you found now with Mashman Consulting Group and everything else that you have come to find to focus on personal branding?
Absolutely, Josh, and it's been a pleasure. I mean, we've had a really awesome conversation. I'm really looking forward to promoting this. I need to do my podcast interviews in the evening time too. It feels so natural. The biggest thing when it comes to my clients and working with people is managing expectations. And this is something I saw a lot in public relations. Is you have these instant gratification people who are selling the fake Forbes feature, the illegitimate followers, all of that low-hanging, unethical BS. And I hate that. I abhor it. It disgusts me. And the reason that works is instant gratification. It appeals to that quick, emotional, look at me, vanity, ego driven, right? But when it comes to working with a new client, I'm all about two things: optimizing and scaling. So the marketing message is we help emerging and established public figures optimize and scale their personal brands. Simple enough. So optimization is about filling in the cracks of what they've already done. So this is great for somebody who already has a book but needs to improve distribution, who already has a podcast but hasn't gotten on all the directories or streaming services. The person who has the book, but it's only listed on Amazon, right? So there are a lot of things that public figures can do to optimize their personal brand and their image to get more results, generate more revenue, have more traction, all that good stuff. And whenever I'm working with a client, talking about higher level people, there are moments where I'm thinking to myself, wow, I have an expectation for myself and what I must deliver for this person. Higher caliber the individual, higher caliber the results. You don't want to be, feeding McDonald's to somebody who's dining at a 5-star restaurant, right? And so don't get me wrong, I could go for a Big Mac, but that doesn't mean I want a Big Mac if I'm paying $100 for it. So that would be what I would say.
I mean, it's a very, very insightful, Isaac. And of course, this has been a great conversation, a great episode, a great, a very insightful, just a lot of information to put out there. And I feel like you talked about branding in such a unique way, also a different way that I don't normally get from guests, to be honest, because you explain it in very simple terms. You explain it in a way that this is all you have to do. And this is quite simple, that you have to practice your branding. You have to put some importance into it, put some effort into it, and it'll give you all the returns that you probably are not expecting. But more importantly, you really made it human. You made it like very relatable for our audience and listeners out there, who I'm sure would have loved to know more and learn more. But don't worry, because you can check out Isaac on his website, isaacmashman.com. Isaac, where else can we connect with you? Where can we find you? We'd love to learn more.
Absolutely, and it's been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. You can find me everywhere by, going to Google Isaac Mashman. I cannot be in the personal branding space if I don't have the ability to say that and you're able to verify everything that I'm telling you is true. So go to Google, search up Isaac Mashman, connect with me on all of the platforms or one of the platforms. And you can also go to Mashman Consulting Group's website, mashmancg.com. Super simple.
That's it. Go look him up. The man, the brand, the man, the myth, the legend, the brand, and all that. Go Google him, Isaac Mashman. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been fun. It was been great. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Isaac, thank you once again. To all our audience and listeners out there, thank you for watching this episode. I hope you enjoyed this one. We'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.